talked about the marketing mix, and we've been getting into some detail about products, types of products. We talked about goods and services and different classifications for products. We talked about new product development and why products fail. And we talked about pricing. Different types of pricing approaches, different pricing objectives. And today what we're going to talk about is place. We're going to talk about distribution. So we're going to talk at first about different channels of distribution and then specific retailers. So I want to talk broadly about different channels of distribution, different types of retailers, and then what I want us to brainstorm is a list of retailers that fit within those channels. So I want us to come up with examples of retailers that operate in those channels. Now for us, one of our challenges is going to be to decide where we're going to sell our product. Are we going to sell it at a physical location or a virtual location? Which retailers are we going to sell our product? So that's not something that happens on its own. That's our strategic responsibility. We need to decide. We need to select specific retailers. Now, keep in mind, while we're choosing, we're also being chosen, which means that even if we want to be on the Walmart planogram, they're looking to optimize their shelf space productivity. So they may not select our product to be in their stores. So we have to keep that in mind, that we may not be able to get placement at certain particular retailers. Or, in a worst case scenario, maybe even at certain channels of distribution. So we have to decide where our product is going to be relevant. What channels and at what retailers does it make sense for our products to be sold? So we're going to talk about distribution strategy. Do we want to sell our product everywhere? Or do we want to sell it at a limited number of locations? Or do we want to sell it at maybe even one particular retailer? All of those are strategic decisions that need to be made. And we'll talk about what are some of the metrics that retailers use when they're looking at shelf space productivity, and different types of retail strategies. Some retailers we refer to as EDLP, and some as high-low, for example. We're going to talk more about what that means. But let's start now and talk about different channels of distribution. So let's see if we can identify different channels of distribution. What are some of the channels of distribution in the United States? How are they defined? What are the terms that we use to define some of these channels of distribution? How about mass merchants? The mass merchant is a channel of distribution. A certain type of retailer operates in that channel. Sometimes we use the term discounter. What other channels, what other retail types? Okay, we're not going to talk about specific retailers just yet, but what are some of the other retailer types, which we also refer to as channels, channels of distribution?
Exclusive.
What is it?
Exclusive?
Well, we want to identify the type of channels first. Let's talk about the specific types of channels before we talk about our approach in dealing with those channels. So what do you think? So mass merchants is one type of retailer, one channel of distribution. So our goal might be to sell our product in this channel of distribution to this retailer type, mass merchants, and we're going to talk in a minute about who are some examples of those retailers. What about grocery stores? Grocery stores are a type of retailer. That's a channel of distribution. Again, we have to decide, does it make sense for us to sell our product in that channel at those types of retailers? Now, for these apples, that would seem to make sense. What about for the iPhone 5? Should we try to sell the iPhone 5 at grocery stores? Because they have a lot of outlets, they have a lot of physical stores, a lot of locations. It's something to think about. Because grocery stores do have what's known as a scramble merchandising strategy, which means that they sell things other than groceries. Is that true? Don't they sell tea kettles, light bulbs, mops? That's not the same thing as a can of soup or a bag of Oreos, Milk's favorite cookie, right? So we need to decide. So this is very strategic because it's going to impact whether or not we're successful. What else?
Department stores.
Convenience stores?
Yes, convenience stores. What else?
Department stores.
What is it?
Department stores.
Yes, department stores. These are all types of retailers. We'll talk about who some of the retailers are that sell in these channels. What do you think? No, department stores, you don't like those? No? That's or no? Oh, okay. That was a sidebar? Okay. Anything else?
She said on the block.
Huh?
She said on the block. On the block.
On the block? Okay. Okay, so. Well, yeah. Restaurants could be, yeah, let's put restaurants there for now. Good, that's good. What else?
Online stores.
Online, yes, so on the internet, so we could have either a physical or a virtual presence. Now, do you think that's a no-brainer? Like we say, well, why don't we just sell everything online? Well, because think about, we have to look at this in terms of where we are as an organization. Are we introducing a brand new product? Are we a brand new company? Or have we been in existence for a while? Are we an ongoing concern? Because that's going to impact whether or not we decide to sell online, right? Whether we decide to have a physical storefront or a virtual storefront because of the startup costs. So the startup cost for a virtual storefront is much, much less than for a physical storefront. Now, if we've already been in business for a long time, then that's like a non-issue for us. Then it's just a supplementary part of our distribution strategy, part of our retailing operations. But when we're first starting out, like out of this class, we might come up with an idea, a product that we want to market, and we don't have enough investment, we don't have enough capital. Maybe by default, we have to open up an online store, e-commerce, which, depending on the product, could be a great idea. That could be very effective. I'm not saying that that's bad, I'm just saying that when we have to decide, there's going to be some constraints. To open up a physical store involves a lot more time, a lot more money. Some retailers, for example, have thousands of locations. Some have a few hundred locations. But even to open up a few hundred locations takes many years. Because you need to first identify the location and then find a shop that's available in that location. So you might think, for example, yeah, I got an idea. I want to have a luxury line of products, let's say clothing, and I want to have a shop on Fifth Avenue. Sounds good. Sounds good. Fifth Avenue would be a good location, but are there any shops available there? And so very often, it takes a long time to acquire premium locations, and depending on the economy, sometimes even secondary locations that are available, that have shops available. And then it takes time to retrofit them, because the place that was in there before, they might have been selling apples. Now we want to sell clothing. So we have to tear everything down, put in displays, change the flooring, the lighting, everything about the shop. That could take certainly many months and thousands upon thousands of dollars. That could easily be $250,000 right there. And a year passes and we haven't even sold one pair of jeans for $300 yet that are torn for $300. But if we open up a shop online, we can start selling pretty quickly. We can have a web designer create our website, and we could start processing orders pretty quickly. Now we still have to deal with the issue of inventory. Now one of the advantages of selling online is that it helps us manage inventory. What do I mean by that? Well, for example, in a retail shop, when people come in, they expect to see 50 pairs of jeans in this size, with this design, etc. Right? They need to see that the store is well stocked. That could be a few $1 million worth of merchandise. A few $1 million. Even I remember I was always very impressed at a small shop, a very small shop, like literally the size of this space here, where this podium is, in Hong Kong, and the storekeeper told me that he had 1,200 items there. Could you imagine? Now, he wasn't selling, bulky items. He was selling all these little things on what we call JPEGs, these hooks in retail that they have like, little scissors or nail clippers, all these different things. Hairpins, right? All these, he said he had 1,200 items there, and I kid you not, it was a tiny, tiny shop, just like this. 1,200 items for a tiny shop like that. Could you just imagine if we're selling shoes, how many items we would need to have in the store? Different colors, different sizes, shoes for men, shoes for women, shoes for adults, shoes for kids. And how much that inventory, how much we're going to have to invest in that inventory. But sometimes, and we could probably think of some products where selling online is not ideal. Why? What would be the issue? Why would some products you want to sell in a physical location.
Things like prestige items you might not want to just buy online because beyond the fact that you could scan for it, it also loses its prestige because it's just sold online as opposed to, say, a really specific store.
So there could be
Image issues.
yeah, an issue of image and also credibility, that people might have concern about shopping from online for certain products. They might feel that maybe the authenticity of the product is an issue. So with certain products, you might want to, you might want to see it for yourself. Touch it, feel it, examine it.
Automobiles,
Automobiles,
they don't have a fixed rate, and you can't put that on the internet. And if you have someone there, you can test drive it, like actually get a feel for the car, and sales dependent, get kind of with paying a little bit more for it.
so for an automobile, certainly, you remember when we talked about the innovation model, and we talked about some of the characteristics? We talked about the level of complexity of the product. Remember we talked about how quickly a product can move through the innovation model? We said that the level of complexity of the product is going to impact the rate. And we also said the trialability. So what you raised is a good point. What is your name? Good. Dimitri, right? Dimitri says that, well, you can't test drive a car online. Well, sure, in terms of trialability, the idea of being able to test drive a car is an excellent solution to that problem. Because coffee, we could always sell it in these tiny jars, and people could try it. Most of the time, what large coffee manufacturers do is they give away free samples. Well, when Dimitri is saying, he says, yeah, they understand that. You want people to buy cars. Let me drive it first. I'm not going to spend $20, $30, $130,000 for a car unless I could drive it first. So online, right, that becomes problematic, although it depends on the level of involvement of the purchase. For some people, maybe they feel they don't need to test drive the car. Or maybe they've owned a Chevy before. But certainly, yeah, I think that's a good example of one where, yeah, maybe selling online is going to be an issue for some people because they can't test drive the car. Yeah, yeah.
Certain things, like certain clothing or jewelry, for instance, like you wouldn't really want to buy an engagement ring online. You know, it's not one of these things that not only because it's a luxury item, but it's because you want certain sizes. You want to try them out. You want to see how it looks in real life rather than a Photoshop picture. Things like that.
Yeah, I agree. There's definitely for some products, and also depending on the individual. Right? We're kind of generalizing a little bit. For Edward, that might be an issue. For Melinas, maybe not. Maybe for Christina, it's not an issue. Maybe for Stephen, it is an issue. Depends on the product. It depends on the person. So maybe for someone else, let's say, who wants to buy an engagement ring, they know about the 4 C's, about the clarity, about the cut, the carat, and the color. So those things you could all specify, and you could say, I want, you know, SI1, and you know, specify all the different criteria, and then you say, just give me that. Just like if you're going to buy a laptop, for example. So online, you might feel, maybe you might be reluctant to buy a laptop online. But now, for example, like with Dell, you could customize the laptop. So it's not like you just have to buy what they have there, what they show. You could say, no, I want the one with the i7 processor, not i5, not i3. Say, okay, no problem, we can give you that. I want 1 terabyte of RAM, not 512 gigabyte or 256 gigabyte. Okay, no problem, we can give you that. And I want 12 gigabyte instead of 8 or 4 gigabyte. So depending on whether or not it's a high involvement purchase or low involvement purchase, that's going to impact our ability or receptivity to purchasing the product online. If you feel that you could, if you know the specifications and you have that confidence, you may not have the confidence that they're going to deliver what you say, then you may or may not be willing to shop online. What do you think?
So I was gonna say, people wouldn't buy perfume online because you need to smell it, unless you're like a local brand. If you're not a local brand, no one would ever buy them.
So for a new product, if we introduce a new product, we're going to introduce an item, a perfume, then there needs to be that trial. People need to, you're not going to just buy this Bassell perfume. You've never smelled it before. You're going to want to see what it smells like. Well, not see what it smells like, you want to smell it, right? You want to experience the scent. Well, you can't, right? You can't do that online. Now, if it was something, if it was a repeat purchase, you say, oh, well, I bought Chanel before, or I bought this other fragrance before, then what would you think? Would you be willing to make the purchase? So if it's not at the introductory stage, but maybe the growth stage of the new product life cycle, then maybe you're going to be more receptive. Say, well, I know what it smells like, and I purchased it before. It's just a repeat purchase. It's not trial.
Oh, I was going to say perishable goods and also shipping. Shipping becomes a whole other issue in itself. Like you could miss the item, there's no instant satisfaction as buying from brick and mortar stores. And it goes along with the perishable goods. If you miss the shipping and they wait next day, it could possibly spoil.
Oh, you mean if you don't receive it?
Yes.
Yeah. So then as the retailer, then we need to convince people that that's not an issue. That the way it's shipped, it's in a styrofoam container with packed with ice or whatever it is, that is going to keep the item fresh. So you're right, we need to anticipate that and convince people that we've solved for that problem. That you're right, yeah, it might get spoiled, but in our container it'll stay fresh for 3 days. Anything else you want to add to that?
Relationships. Like they have a Match.com and stuff. You may not want to do that in case the person's crazy.
Oh, I see, okay. Interesting. Interesting. I'll keep that in mind. All right. Anything else? Now, what is it about, why did I say about the inventory? How does that address the issue of inventory as an online retailer?
You have to have a facility to hold the products.
Yeah, so we're going to need a distribution center. Even if we don't have a retail shop, we're going to need a place to store the product. But also, very often, online retailers, one of the advantages that we have, and we have to manage expectations, is our operation is based on a strategy known as make to order, which is different than make to stock. So when you order something online and it says that it'll ship in 2 weeks, that may not be desirable because you want, very often, people want that instant satisfaction. You go to the store, you pick it up, and you leave with it. You could try it on, you could wear it that night, whatever it is. You could start using it. The reason why that's the case is because when you see those long or longer delivery times is because they're making the product to order. That means they don't hold the inventory, they're not holding inventory. When they get your order, then they're going to get the inventory and ship it to you. Even Amazon, for example, they're not holding the inventory for many of the products. Many of the items ship directly from the manufacturer. Their whole business model has evolved over the last 15 years or so. So one of our biggest challenges is around minimizing the amount of money that we have tied up in the business, right? Our working capital. Inventory for retailers, that's one of our biggest challenges, is the amount of investment required in inventory. In some cases, that could be a barrier to entry, which means that while we might have a good idea about opening up a business, right, opening up a storefront, we don't have enough investment capital to buy the inventory and to furnish it, to buy the merchandisers, the racks, and all the other accessories, the cash registers, the counters, and so forth. Are we missing any other retail channels? So we talked about make to order. Make to stock means that we have a certain amount of inventory on hand, so that when customers either come into the store or they order it online, we have the product. Now there may be a point when we are out of stock. So we had 10 items, we got 12 requests. That means that we're out of stock. We sold what we had. So some retailers, what they do is they anticipate a certain amount of demand and carry inventory to meet that demand. In fact, in most physical storefronts, that's what's done. Right? Just about any retailer, major retailer that you go into, like Walmart, Kmart, Target, any of those, Best Buy, all the ones that we're familiar with, they have a store full of inventory. Why? Because they have an expectation about how many units are going to be demanded for each product, for each and every single item on their shelf. And so when they reach a certain level of inventory for each item, then they order more.
Some businesses have like a combination of both. For instance, the laptop market, Dell, if you order it online, they only have a certain number of choices because those are the the product they have in their inventory. So when it is made to order, but they already have like stocked items in there already.
Right. So there's companies can have a hybrid strategy that blends both of these strategies. Absolutely. What about other channels? What about drugstores? Wholesale clubs. Specialty stores. All right, so let's see if we could identify some specific retailers for each of these retail types, each of these channels of distribution, and talk about some of the similarities or some of the differences. Because there's a reason why we classify them this way. They're not the same. They could have some similarities. There's obviously some differences. So let's start. Let's see if we can identify some retailers for each of these channels. What do you think? Who's going to help me here? What could we, let's say specialty stores. What's an example of a specialty store? Which retailer? Go ahead, Dimitri?
The fishing supply store.
Which one?
Fishing supply store.
Well, give me the name of one.
Bernie's.
Bernie's?
Yeah, that's on Utica.
Okay. Bernie's. Anything else?
Staples,
Staples.
Best Buy,
Toys R Us.
Party City, IKEA,
Do you ever have trouble getting out of that place?
yeah.
Like, do you just keep like walking around and around, and it keeps saying, exit this way, and you walk past that sign, and then you come back the other aisle, and you walk back, and you're like, wait a minute.
It's like they want to keep you in there forever.
Yeah, so in retail, we refer to that as the flow. That's not by accident. Every retailer has a store layout. And the store is laid out in a particular way that they believe is going to result in a greater amount of sales. They have a certain flow. So you walk through one section that might have, let's say, shirts. And then you reach a point at the end of the aisle where you could only go right. And you go right, and what do you pass by? Pants. So you walk through the area where they have shirts, now you walk past the area where they have pants. You follow the flow of the store, and then what do you think's there next? Shoes. So you walk through the pants section, the shirt section, the shoe section, and then you end up where they have accessories. So where you could get some Ray-Ban, some sunglasses. That's intentional. Retailers spend a lot of time on developing, designing, and implementing the flow in their store. And creating what we call a visual theme. So they want the retail experience to be unique relative to other retailers. So they want there to be this visual theme so that the store looks and feels a certain way based on the colors that they use, the lighting, whether they have music or don't have music. What they're trying to control is all the touch points. And one of the things that they look at is, we talked about the visual theme, the flow, and touch points. They develop a touch point map that shows all the points of contact that the customer will have with the organization. Everything should be consistent. You want to have the same brand image and same brand identity throughout the entire organization. Whether it's on the company's website, whether it's in the store, everything has got to tie together and create this unique experience. Very important to create a compelling visual theme. Take any place like you mentioned restaurants. Think about what it's like when you go into Applebee's, what it's like when you go into the Hard Rock Cafe, what it's like when you go into TGIF. All of these places, for example, restaurants, have their own visual theme. They have different furnishings, different decorations, different flooring. The lampshades are unique. Some of them don't even have lampshades. Some of them are just recessed lighting. But all of that is by design. That's all intentional. Whether they have tables, or whether they have booths, or whether they have both. That's all part of the visual theme in retail, which is very important. You have to design a visual theme. Do you want it to be Caribbean? Do you want it to be focused on sports? Do you want it to be focused on music? Just some ideas. That's something that we have to decide as marketers. What about mass merchants? Yeah, these are all the big box retailers. Also, we don't have, we didn't include general merchandisers. Like Sears. Sears used to be, in the 1970s, Sears used to be the nation's largest retailer. But what did they do? They decided to focus on market penetration? No. Market development? No. diversification. So in terms of the BCG model, they saw their retail operations as being the cash cow. So their retail operations have been around for a long time. They were very successful, very profitable. They were generating a lot of excess cash. So what did they do? They decided to buy Allstate Insurance Company. Is that diversification? Buy Allstate Insurance Company? Yep. They bought Discover Card. They bought Dean Witter Financial Services. And so their plan was to use the excess cash from their retail operations to fund the growth of those organizations. And they did that for a while, and then they reached a point where, what happened? Yeah, so they lost focus. Remember we said companies are being rewarded for focus. Now, of course, you want to try to extend your brand. You're going to want to extend your brand to other categories, but you have to know your limitations, and you have to know your core competencies. And so, of course, while they were focusing on growing Allstate, which was a star, their business was growing, and they had a significant percentage of the market share. And their other businesses were growing. But like Edward says, while they were focusing on that, then their retail sales dropped over time. And so then they found a point where they didn't have enough resources to grow or to fund the growth of these other strategic business units in their organization. So they sold off those other organizations and then decided that they were going to focus again on retail. Well, they're still not the #1 retailer, right? That's gone. In fact, their latest, as of like 5 years ago or so, or more, a little more, survival strategy was that they came together with Kmart, which is two struggling retailers coming together to try and survive. One of Kmart's challenges has been its lack of identity, because they're trying to compete with Walmart and Target, but Walmart knows who they are. Their strategy is very clear in their minds and the minds of customers, as well as with Target. And those strategies or those positionings are very well articulated. Kmart is caught in the middle. They're trying to be Walmart, they're trying to be Target, so they want to try and differentiate themselves. They try to charge more by offering more. Like for a while they had the Martha Stewart brand. So they had multiple product lines that were branded Martha Stewart at Kmart. What do we call multiple product lines that a company has? Right, it's product mix. So when you group product lines together, that's the company's product mix. That generated over $1 billion a year in sales for Kmart. But is that really Kmart? Is that what you would expect to have at Kmart? More like at Target. Target is definitely more fashion-forward, more contemporary. You would expect to find something like that at Target. But they had that at Kmart. So I think it's just an indication, although it was very successful, I mean, to generate $1 billion in sales, that's an indication that the approach was successful, but it's not there anymore. But yeah, it seems like a mismatch, despite the success, right? Despite the sales. Whereas Walmart is what we describe as EDLP, everyday low price. And they're not trying to say that they sell fancy things or that it's especially fashionable or well-designed or any of those things. It's not that their products aren't good. They're good, they're reliable. But if you want something that's maybe a little bit more trendy, then you're probably going to shop at Target. Well, you might shop at both retailers. It depends what you're going to buy. But you know that at Target, you're also going to pay a little bit more. See, Walmart says, we know that it's an elastic market, that the market is price sensitive for the products they sell. And they say, you know what? We're not going to give you any more than what you need. You don't need all these bells and whistles. We can sell you a toaster for $8.97. Because why do you need these other features? That's going to increase the price. You won't ever even be able to figure out how to use them. Even your professor doesn't know how to use them. They say it comes with 98 different features. But how would you ever? I'm still trying to figure out how to sync my keyboard to my smart TV. That's great, the TV is smart. But what if the person is dumb? Right? Why are they selling you smart TVs? Sell you smart people. I mean, come on. It says sync. Okay, pairing. Like, I mean, yeah. I don't get it. Smart water. Nice. Smart water. It's great. The water is smart. That's why maybe I should start drinking that. Yes, smart water. That's it. That's what I'll do. All right, what about grocery stores?
Is that like supermarkets and whatnot?
Yeah,
Okay.
supermarkets. Who are some of the...
Stop.
What? What is it?
Password?
Pathmark. So you know that Pathmark and A&P and Wallbounds and is it Food Emporium? Food Emporium, I think, are part of the same company. Those are all examples of supermarkets. Any others? Stop and Shop.
ShopRite.
Yes.
Fairways?
Stop and Shop. Yeah. Stop and Shop. And then what was the other one I heard was ShopRite. Let's see, Key Food, right? So you got the idea. All of those are different grocery stores, supermarkets, if you will, Kroger, Albertsons, Publix. These are actually two of the largest, Kroger and Albertsons. Extremely large, not big in this area in the Northeast, but they're among the top supermarkets in the country, right? But they're mainly in the Midwest. They've been growing, but their origins are in the Midwest. Kroger and Albertsons. Who is the retailer that sells more grocery items than any other? Didn't I just say? No, but actually it's a trick question. But so, which retailer sells more groceries than any other?
Walmart.
Yeah, Walmart. Walmart sells more grocery items than any other. Even though they're not a supermarket, they're not a grocery store, but they sell more grocery items than any other retailer in the United States. Let's see, what about convenience stores?
7-Eleven.
Yeah, 7-Eleven is a great example. Thousands of 7-Eleven. In Hong Kong, in fact, they have like a 7-Eleven literally on like all four corners in some areas. So 7-Eleven, is still growing. Even though they have so many locations in the United States and even outside of the United States, they're still growing. Even in Brooklyn, they just opened up one on Avenue U and Flatbush Avenue. There's a 7-Eleven that opened there. They opened up one right over here on, right across the street from Target. There's a 7-Eleven there behind Chase. So they're still growing. We have to decide, do we want to sell our product at 7-Eleven? Is that going to make sense? Are we going to be successful selling our product at that retailer?
The AM/PM stores, the one we mentioned a while back with PP.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right. That's a good example. Like at, what is it, at Mobile, they call them the Bola Market, right? And Exxon, I think they call it Tiger Express. Yes, absolutely. They have a local presence, and there's gas stations everywhere. So yeah, they sell milk, they sell bread, they sell orange juice, right? They sell all these things. So you might not think, you think, oh, people will just go there to get gas, but no, people actually, they're right there. They're, be around the corner from where you live. So if you need some orange juice and Oreos, there you go. You can't go wrong. Yes, good example, Edward, yeah. What about department stores? Nordstrom. Good. We talked about, said that these stores, they have different visual themes, Applebee's, TGIF. What else did we say? Outback, etc. Olive Garden, yeah. I love that salad. After I eat that salad, then I wonder, why did I order an entree? What about drugstores? Yeah, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid. Yes, Dwayne Reed. And then somebody, I think you had mentioned we talked wholesale clubs like BJ's, Costco, Sam's. Whole Foods. So how would you describe Whole Foods? Would you describe Whole Foods as a grocery store or a specialty store? Or maybe both? A combination of both? Now let me ask you this. What's different about specialty stores and department stores, for example? Because there's a reason why we classify them. Otherwise, we would just call them all just retailers. But why do we make that distinction? Why do we say, well, these are specialty stores and these are department stores? What do you think, Myles?
The specialty stores, they just focus on a certain type of products that you can even find at the department stores, but that's not the focus of the department stores. For instance, you can find like an aisle, an empty department for office, a place. But on the staples, that's all they sell.
Yeah, so there's a focus. The assortment at specialty stores is very narrow. Myles is saying it's very focused. So like, what did we put up here, for example? Foot Locker. Foot Locker is also a good example of a specialty store. Why? What do they sell there? Mostly? Yeah, sneakers. Right now, yeah, they sell some t-shirts, right? They sell some other items as well, but their focus is on sneakers, and they don't just have 10 different types of sneakers. They have a very wide variety of sneakers. Am I right? A lot of different brands, a lot of different styles, a lot of different features. Now that's different. Like Milanus is saying, yeah, you could go to Macy's. Oh yeah, they have sneakers there. You could buy sneakers, but they don't have all the different brands and all the different styles, all the different designs. But you could get sneakers at Macy's, and you might be happy. You might be happy with the sneaker assortment that they have there, and get a pair of sneakers that you like. Maybe you bought a pair of sneakers there already. But definitely, at specialty stores, the breadth of the assortment is greater. You're going to have a much greater assortment. Many more items. Many more product lines to choose from. Now maybe sometimes that's the disadvantage when you have to make a decision. Too many choices. You can't decide. So that's definitely a very significant difference between department stores and specialty stores. We have to decide whether or not our product should be sold at these retailers. And then we have to allocate resources to try to get distribution so that our product is going to be on their planogram. So we talked about the visual theme. We said that a retail organization has a visual theme, that they have a flow, that the store has a certain flow. And, importantly, there's what's known in, for example, in retail, at these mass merchants, a POG, which is a planogram. Which means that there's a layout for the shelf, for each aisle, that they replicate throughout the chain. That's one of the secrets of the success of mass merchants, for example, and also at convenience stores and drugstores, for example. So the layout is the same. The items that they have on the shelf are the same. The design is the same. The visual theme is the same. So basically, the idea is, if you go into any Walmart or any Walgreens, you're going to have the same experience. Aisle 2 is over there, and what do they have? The same items, the same products. Sometimes they try to regionalize the assortment. They realize that in certain areas, let's say of the country, these products don't sell as well. So there are exceptions. Every store is not like identical, but they try because they realize that that's going to help them be successful. Because customers expect, they have that expectation that it's going to be the same. So customers want that. Don't you hate that when they do a planogram reset and you go in the store and you're like, that's right, you can't find it. You're like, what happened? And then you start thinking, oh, it's been a long week. They're like, no, I know that the orange juice was over there. And it's not. But they're trying to continually change the flow because now they want to put the orange juice next to some other product that's going to help improve the shelf space productivity for the store overall. So doesn't it make sense to put the chips next to the salsa? Put the, what? The tea bags next to the tea kettles. What was that? Yeah, exactly. That's what we refer to in retail as adjacencies. Very important. A lot of time is spent trying to determine what's going to be next to what. So on one side of the aisle is going to be spaghetti, and then on the other side is going to be the spaghetti sauce. Now we kind of take that for granted, and when I say that, you kind of chuckle. You think, yeah, but it wasn't always that way. And maybe that's not the best way to do it. But they continue to track and monitor to maximize their sales. That's known as show space productivity. So for every section, remember I told you that their stores have given departments. They look at the show space productivity. Not just, so we're not just talking about what is the sales for the entire store, but we're looking at for the dairy section, or let's say for the pasta section. They're trying to determine what is the show space productivity for this space. How many units are being sold for each item? What is the best-selling item? What is the amount of sales that's being generated for each item, from each shelf? What is the amount of margin, dollars, and also the margin percent? So for a given category, retailers have a goal in terms of the margin percent. Remember last time we talked about standard markup. So they expect to have a certain standard markup. And that varies by category. In grocery, it's generally much lower. Can be 8 to 15%. In home furnishings, usually 30%, sometimes 50%. Apparel, we said, very often is 100% and even 200% markup. So they want to look at how productive that entire section is, because they might, this item might be a 30% markup, but this item might be a 10% markup. Why would they do that? That's known as margin averaging. Why would they do that? Why would a retailer do that? Why would they agree to take this product and to accept a 10% markup?
About the product, or you mean the different stores?
No, the product on their shelf. So if this is their shelf, and they have these different products, their goal might be to have a 30% markup. That might be their standard markup. But that doesn't mean that every item on the shelf is providing them with 30%. Why would they have an item on there that's a markup of only 10%?
Well, maybe it's old merchandise. They're going to have new shipment of the same product.
So it might be a sale. They might be trying to move out some excess inventory, and at a lower price, they expect that they're going to sell a lot more, and maybe they'll be able to transition into a new item. Because what that means, when we talk about a planogram reset, this item might disappear. If we're going to put our item, something has got to go away. There's no more like this. You just don't add on sections. Your store is so big. That's it. So if you take in something new, something else has got to go away. And that's why they're constantly looking and trying to anticipate, like we've been talking so much about the price elasticity of demand and cost, to try and figure out, if I take in this new item, how is my entire section going to perform? Is it going to be better? So this is our show space. We're looking at the productivity. Are we selling more units? Are we selling more dollars? Are we more profitable? What is our margin percent? Now, what about if it's a product that's branded with a brand that has a very high level of brand awareness? You might expect that you're going to sell more, that your turns are going to be greater. So at that price, you're going to sell more units. Even though you're making less margin, your total revenue, in this case we would say, is going to be more. It's a reasonable assumption that a very well-known brand that's selling, even if it's at suggested retail price, but for us it's delivering less margin percent per unit, overall is going to increase our total revenue. So in that case, it would make sense to say, yeah, we're going to sell more units. We're absolutely going to sell more units, and it's going to compensate for the fact that we're making less percent per unit. In that case, it would make sense. That would be a reasonable assumption. Sometimes we don't know if that's the case. We might lower the price, but then it's not going to increase the number of units that we sell enough to even reach the same level of total revenue. All right, so before we go, keep this in mind for next time. In terms of our distribution strategy, is it going to be intensive, selective, or exclusive? Are we going to sell our product everywhere? Which would mean that our strategy, our distribution strategy is intensive. So we're going to try and sell our product to all of these retailers, in all of these channels. For some products, that might make sense. Not for every product, but for some. Or we might choose out of those, we might choose only a few channels, maybe only 8 to 10 specific retailers. And then our exclusive strategy, an exclusive distribution strategy, means that we're going to sell, even if it's just for a limited time, at one retailer. Can you think of an example where we've seen that happen? Who's talking? Yes, Mia? What? Alexis. Okay, Alexis. Yes, go ahead. With the iPhone and AT&T. Absolutely. That's a great example of where they have an exclusive. And for in some cases, what we do is we give a lead launch to a particular retailer where they have an exclusive for a certain period of time. Very often, in certain categories, we'll give a lead launch, let's say, to department stores. We'll sell it at Macy's to establish a higher price in the market before we start to sell it to Walmart and Kmart and Target. So for a period of time, there may be one retailer or a few retailers in a given channel that have an exclusive before it trickles down to other channels at a less expensive price. Questions? Are we good? You guys rock!